And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. I'm your host Dan, aka smAsho. Today we're talking about the subsiding of a coronal hole wind stream. Pretty bright in here. We'll be talking about the moon versus sleep and cosmology stories. Low activity on the sun. Here's a view in 335 angstroms. I would direct your attention down here in the southeastern regions. There was a little bit of activity there. We do not see a coronal mass ejection associated with that. That happened at about 1600 hours yesterday. Also an active region rising in the northeast. So up there, we'll keep you more than apprised as to whether that is a sunspot. How about another wavelength? It's 193 angstroms. Quite a huge coronal hole rotating into the Earth-facing zone. You can expect to see a coronal hole wind stream from that in about 3 days. As the coronal hole wind stream from this series of coronal holes seems to have already subsided. So I believe part of that actually glanced off of the magnetosphere, which is why we saw what we saw yesterday in the geospace magnetosphere movies. Enough about that. And here is the colorized magnetogram to show you largely not a lot of areas of magnetic organization here. No sunspots. Could be one rising in the northeast. We'll let you know by the end of the video if that's a sunspot or not. One other thing, we're going to show you a ground-based view of the sun here, as those were space-based views of the sun. Here is the latest from Udaipur, India. And we'll make sure we have the latest image. There are plasma filaments in between the Earth and the sun right now, so there is some possibility for coronal mass ejections, and the rising of this active region up here does increase the probability for solar flares a little bit. No active watches or warnings from me right now. And you can see some filaments down here in the southern portion of the sun. We'll show you those filaments later in some additional magnetogram. This is a hydrogen alpha spectra. This is 6,562.8 angstroms. And again, that was from Udaipur, India. Some more views of the sun coming at the end of the video. And thanks, Smashes of Hazard. Smashs of Hazard, thanks. Here's where stuff is in the solar system. Stuff like planets, the phase of the moon, and even some planetoids. There's where things will be in a week, approaching a full moon, when you're likely to sleep worse than you sleep around new moon. We'll get to a story about it momentarily. I like to build sky charts. I like to use in-the-sky.org and face mine to the south because I'm currently facing to the south. The yellow line you see there is the ecliptic. That's the line at which the sun takes across the sky. And just put in your location, and you can make yourself a sky chart if you like. Again, it's in-the-sky.org. The solar radio flux, a measurement of the solar corona's radio output, is at 71, essentially solar minimum conditions. There's the one-year chart putting that into context. That's available at solar.info. The 10.7 centimeter radio flux is the black line, and the red line you see there is sunspot number, which has been at 0 for an extended period here. As we return to solar minimum conditions. So there's the radio flux in comparison to sunspot number, and our regular viewers are well aware. Thanks for tuning in if you're a new viewer. Next, we'll look at volcanoes, and we saw Etna exploded yesterday, produced a 30,000-foot plume of ash in a paroxysm, a spectacular lava fountaining eruptive episode. Still producing a 12,000-foot ash plume there over Sicily. Please do not attempt to hang glide over the caldera. Other volcanoes include Mount Raung in East Java, flight level 140. It's a 14,000-foot ash plume. Also Semeru in Indonesia, 13,000-foot ash plume there. Pakaya, exhibiting an effusive explosive eruption. began to increase gradually last night. Some glowing lava bombs were ejected. Please stay out of the danger zone of Pacaya. If you are vacationing in Guatemala, and somehow I doubt that you are vacationing in Guatemala, if you are in Guatemala, leave us a comment, let us know. Sangay exploding down in Ecuador, flight level 230. It's a 23,000-foot ash plume. Revenador in Ecuador also exploding, flight level 150, a 15,000-foot ash plume. And Sabancaya is exploding in Peru. Please do not attempt to do a tightrope walk over the caldera. We need the views on YouTube. Next, looking at earthquakes of the past 24, nothing over a 5.5 magnitude, a 5.5 magnitude. We saw a ton of deep quakes yesterday. If you want to see our report on it, check out yesterday's daily space weather video. So some deep quakes kicking off, like this 4.1 at Indonesia at over 147 kilometers depth. Very deep quake near Fiji at a 4.9 magnitude, 501 kilometers depth. One of the largest of the past 24 was this one here at Indonesia, due north of central North Australia. Small deep quake strikes Alaska, make it 2. Those were about a half an hour apart. And the largest was only a 3 magnitude. And just scrolling up the list, a 5.5 strikes Greece. That was the largest of the past 24, I believe. Let's check the location of that quake. Could be a populated area. Near the Gulf of Corinth. Looks like a fairly unpopulated area. Actually, it's quite mountainous where that occurred. And mountains do have the effect of sort of insulating the rest of the area against feeling the earthquake. Here's another deep quake at Papua New Guinea. And let's move on to thank everybody who views on Twitch. This smAsho stream was streamed live at twitch.tv/smAshomash. Twitch has a great mobile app, and the live streaming platform is fantastic, which is why we use it regularly. We also do stream live on YouTube. It's twitch.tv/smAshomash. Thanks to our new subscriber over there. And if you don't follow me on Twitter, thanks to our new followers over on Twitter. We did put links to Eugene Bagashov, theoretical particle physicists, cliff notes, margin notes, whatever you want to call it, highlights on 2 different books, Anthony Peratt's Plasma Cosmology book and Hannes Alphane's Space Plasma book. Links there to the thunderbolts.info forum, of which I am not a member. So thanks again, Twitter followers. Also, I would invite everybody to check out our own sites. And thanks very much for everybody who tunes in on YouTube, who presses like, who presses share. Thanks everybody who's left a comment. Cheers. If you enjoy the content, please do so. As we do not only daily space weather, but solar forecasting, news and politics, climate and weather, original music, earthquakes and volcano reports, commentary. And we've even made a new playlist just recently. We're also all over social media. We would invite you to our own website, as we saw the writing on the wall years ago, and we created smAshomash.com. Why? Well, because of things like big tech censorship, the promotion of fraud and complete nonsense. We don't do that. We've got smAshomash.org presents the Sun series parts 1 through 9 right on our homepage. You can watch them right in the homepage at smAshomash.com. You can also find links to our merch as well as our social media. There's our social media sites underneath that arrow. Today's featured merch is the Google Bias shirt. Yes. Now, if you're still using Google as a verb, we hope that you're using it with the definition of to obtain biased information about someone or something on the World Wide Web. Google does not deny this, otherwise they would not take your money to get your organization listed higher on search results. Usage. To use it in a sentence, I Googled it, and now I know less about it. Thanks to our patrons, the true source of funding for the content, and thanks to everybody who picked up merch, by the way. Cheers. It's extremely high quality. We use only very high-res images. please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/smashomash, patreon.com/smashomash. You'll get early alerts and other media and information that nobody else in the world gets. Some of it's early released, some of it's never released. And let's do a cosmology segment. This one is full of stuff. I'm going to blast through various things here, at least 4 articles to be covered. How about this weird system? In this system, the planets rotate this way, and the star rotates that way. How can that be? Does that fly in the face of your astrophysics? Well, it's believed to do that because it's part of a binary system, and that the other star affected the protoplanetary disk. Essentially, you're looking at a star with planets that it doesn't own orbiting it, pretty much. So this 2 coplanar orbiting planets in a multi-stellar system, you can find that on phys.org in the Astronomy and Space section, believed to be an aspect of the interaction between the 2 binary stars and the planetary disk. So that one's pretty interesting. Perhaps have a read on that. Also, another interesting thing, Assassin 18AAN, an unusual cataclysmic variable in that it has a very long periodicity. Now, these binary systems typically consist of a white dwarf and a more normal star, and they usually rotate around each other. They usually orbit each other at an extremely fast speed. The orbital period for this one was approximately 3.6 hours, which apparently is a long time. And apparently stars moving at relativistic speeds is kind of weird. So maybe check out this article as well. Assassin 18AAN, the unusual cataclysmic variable. I'll let the article scroll, then you can view the video just by viewing our content and pressing pause. Don't worry, we'll be here when you get back. It's the beauty of video on demand. And let me just check the life of the stream before we go on with the cosmology segment. Let's talk about the moon and sleeping. Now, I talk regularly on the channel about how I sleep better at new moon. We're not exactly sure if the effects of new moon and full moon are just because of the light. Consumer tip: make sure your sleeping chamber is completely dark. Wearing a blindfold will not do it, as your skin has photosensitive sensors on the surface of your skin. Your skin can tell if it's light in the room, even if your eyes can't. So it's very important to have a completely dark sleep chamber. If you've got a VCR light or something in your bedroom, cover it up. Don't have any light in your sleep chamber. Any light is a detriment to your sleep. Now, going back to this study, there was a study with like 750,000 subjects, both in high-tech and low-tech areas with and without access to electricity. So we're not exactly sure if it's just the light from the moon that's causing this effect on sleep, as people's sleep cycles seem to oscillate exactly the same as the lunar cycle of 29.5 days. So if you weren't aware of that, hopefully that's going to help you out, as part of our mission is to talk about human health stories. If you're not familiar with the mission, head to smashomash.com/forum/mission and you can read all about it. As one of the subjects that we cover is one of the aspects of our mission is to publish scientific papers in a multidisciplinary manner, including sciences such as spectroscopy, chemistry, astrophysics, health, wellness, longevity, cosmology, biology, magnetohydrodynamics, geology, etc. You can find the rest of those portions of our mission at smashomash.com/mission. This one's from a SciTech Daily article, and it is from a study from National University of Quilmes, funded by the National Science Foundation and the Leaky Foundation. Hopefully your urethra is not leaky. Next, we're going to take a look at a random object Today's random object is number 660, but before we do that, let's look at the X-ray transient outputs of the core of the Milky Way galaxy. Yes, Sagittarius A star. Here is the historic X-ray graph of Sagittarius A star, the galactic core of the Milky Way galaxy. And you can see it actually went into a rather loud state here over the past about 2 weeks. Coming out of a very quiescent state. Keep in mind that is X-rays. Let's go see what number 660 is on the list. And number 660 is IGRJ17354-3255, an SRC/gamma. So it must be some sort of a gamma ray emitting object. And it's very cyclical, so check that out. You can see a very cyclic pattern here of X-rays. It looks like an uptick right around most New Year's. That's pretty interesting. And this has actually gone into a fairly loud state lately here as well. Maybe it's a louder portion of the solar system. I don't know, but let's take a look. We should get some interesting imagery of this object, whatever it might be. Probably a star within the Milky Way galaxy. Oh, wait, what did it say? It is a high-mass X-ray binary candidate. So here it is on Simbad. And the X not even pointing to a point of light there. But apparently a gamma ray source. Let's see if it shows up on the Fermi. And it's right in the galactic disk. So it's at a very bright spot, speaking of X-rays. Let's see if it shows up on the infrared. The 2-mass. Nothing showing up. Oh, maybe it is showing up. Let that draw in. And actually it is showing up there in the 2-mass. The X-ray binary candidate, which apparently emits gamma rays. Here it is on the Chandra. Great view of it there on the Chandra X-ray telescope. And let's also check it out on the XMM Newton, the multi-mirror project. And there it is on the XMM. We'll close out the cosmology segment with a zoom out and a zoom in Chandra X-ray. And so there it is on Chandra X-ray. Again, that object, number 660, on the Neil Gorell Swift-Bat X-ray Observatory is IGRJ17354-3255, a catchy name. And if you want to monitor transients yourself, head to the Neil Gorell Swift Observatory. Oh, and we've got one more. Stars and planets may be siblings. This is another SciTech Daily article. This was not news to me, as this does fly in the face a little bit of first and second generation stars. I won't spend too much time on this one. Stars and planets likely to be siblings, as stars don't just behave like gravitational wells, folks. They behave like fountains, as well as gravitational wells. And it's not really known whether the sun, or indeed the galaxy, are gaining or losing mass. This is from Ophiuchus Molecular Cloud J1709, where there are some protostars in there, or at least certainly stars with a lot of dust around them. Again, that article from SciTech Daily. And I think that's the last we've got in today's cosmology segment. There ends today's cosmology segment. Moving on. We don't see any major solar flares, but a small uptick here in the X-ray flux as we see an active region rising in the northeast. No surprises to see a flatlined proton flux here as measured by the GOES-16. No coronal mass ejections have struck the magnetosphere lately. Here's a real-time solar wind, and you can see the subsiding there of the coronal hole wind stream, at least in terms of density. So we may see an additional uptick here in the solar wind speed. As you can see, the density over the past 24 has dropped down from 17 approximately protons per cubic centimeter down to 4.43. Solar wind speed 426 kilometers a second. Don't be surprised to see this kick back up, as the initial coronal hole wind stream arrived a little bit on the early side. So I would expect, my forecast is to see the solar wind speed come up a bit here, although it hasn't happened lately. So this last little drop off here went from 8.64 protons per cubic centimeter down to about 4, and the solar wind speed weekly went from about 418 up to about 437. Perhaps another coronal hole wind stream glancing blow is still in effect. Slightly elevated solar wind speeds. KP index is at 2. There it is over the past 3 days. You can see we got into geomagnetic unrest from between 7 and 9 hours. Each bar represents 3 hours. Here's the geospace magnetosphere movie for the day. It's 4 hours of data. It's all based on the space weather modeling framework, which uses lots and lots of variables. And you're looking at many, many Earth diameters here out in space. I would note the main magnetohydrodynamic pressure here showing up in the magnetotail following the subsiding of that solar wind density. Here are ground magnetic perturbations, and since we're living through a geomagnetic excursion, we show this daily. I'm interested in what changes are happening in the Earth's B field. And for you magnetism noobs, the B field is the field that goes through the magnet. Now, remember folks, ignorance is the root of all knowledge. You can't possibly know something until you don't know it. You got to not know it first. Anyway, that was 4 hours of ground magnetic perturbations. Here's the 3 days of the GOES magnetometer, and we're seeing pretty spiky readings here. Over the past 3 days, some very low readings down here. It's a result of a bunch of plasma being in between the Earth and the Sun, as we've stated earlier in the video. And that arcjet moment is the satellite turning on its thrusters, creating some plasma which could affect the magnetometer readings. And we can expect to see some pretty low GOES magnetometer readings here in the next day or two. And it's all a result of this large plasma filament. You can see those bunched up potential field surface source lines. Those are a result of a lot of plasma in the corona in between Earth and Sun. Plasma has a tendency to block, orient to, and be heated up by magnetic fields. Here's another view. It's the line of sight field plot. It shows you the solar magnetogram and the poloidal fields. And the Sun's B field here is shown in blue. Large coronal hole rotating in. And you'll get a good view of that in the line of sight coronal hole plot. That large red blob in the lower portion is just about to move into the Earth-facing zone. By tomorrow, it'll be moving out of the Earth-facing zone. South pole-oriented coronal hole. We can expect a coronal hole wind stream from that in about 3 days. Here's the potential field surface source plot, the magnetic field plot of the solar corona, a chaotic place. We show it daily because I think it looks cool, and some of our viewers do as well. Here is the diagram of the atmosphere. This is in kilometers. Here is me checking the life of the stream right before I vanish. And everything looks just fine. Again, there's that atmospheric diagram. Keep in mind it's showing you altitudes in kilometers, such as that red F over there on the right, where the GOES 16 makes its measurements. Here's another view, a totally different diagram showing you the Van Allen belts. Keep in mind measurements here are in miles. If you need to pause it, feel free. We'll be here when you get back. Next, we're moving into electrons, which is why we just showed you the Van Allen belts diagram. Here is the charging hazard scenario. Some minor charging hazards there over Mexico and the Central Pacific. Here's the 3-day chart of the GOES electron flux, and we're seeing fairly low levels of electron flux here. Whenever you see that flat line at the bottom, that is the lowest point that the GOES 16 can make a measurement. And you're looking at greater than or equal to 2 million electron volts, 2 mega electron volts. Mega means million, folks. In other words, megahertz would be millions of vibrations per second. Here's a 1-year chart of the electron flux from Solon.info to show you that in context. Quite low levels, as you can see. And we typically do see quite low levels accompanied by coronal hole wind streams. It all has to do with chemistry happening in places like the ionosphere. Next, looking at the total electron content forecast. And I'm going to let this play through a second time here. This will show you where GPS errors are located, folks. This is showing you the entire error column. up to about 12,500 miles, where you would have a GPS satellite located in a geosynchronous orbit. Nothing to write home about there. Here's the electron content forecast. And we're expecting to see about the same levels tomorrow as we saw today. The green boxes are the forecast. The yellow diamonds are not Lucky Charm cereal. They are the observation, and I would agree with this forecast. Next, looking at the ionosphere. And we see some sudden charge ups here in the ionosphere. You'll see this make it all the way up to 14 megahertz. A sudden charge up there happening over places like India, the Indian Ocean, etc. Here's the view from 10 o'clock, 10:15 Universal Time. That's the latest image. Looking pretty normal there. Next, looking at the weather.gov map. And we still got massive winter storm warnings, which are the pink. Hard freezes and some horrific ice storms continuing to fall in Texas. I see they've got about 1 million customers back in power. Still like 3 million customers out of power in Texas. Here's what's going on with that, by the way. You've got warm, moist air coming up here and mixing with this cold air coming down from Canada, which creates massive pressure gradients and things like ice storms. Anyway, here are the jet streams of the Western world. Let me rotate that. There we go. Extreme meridional jet stream flow at its finest. Tripled up jet stream here over the South Pacific. Extreme bends in the jet stream. It looks like Charlie Brown's shirt. Here are the jets of the Eastern world. And we see a massive anticyclone here over Western Australia. And anticyclones in the southern hemisphere rotate counterclockwise. Another one over the southern Indian Ocean there, as well as some backward flowing jet stream here and here. Jet streams flowing east to west are indeed backwards. Don't believe me? Ask a pilot. Here's your global lightning map. I like to use lightningmaps.org when I hear thunder. It's easier to convince my friends and foes that I'm Thor. Please don't tell anybody. That's a secret. The first rule of being Thor is don't tell anybody that you're Thor. Just kidding, folks. Just kidding, folks. Here's the pressure situation over the U.S. And we're going to zoom this out to the global view. There's the global view of pressure. Powerful low pressure system there over the North Atlantic. Northwest of Ireland. And we'll just advance this into tomorrow. This is the this is the Euro forecast. All right, that's the Euro forecast. There's where we expect things to be tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Time. And there's the GFS forecast for 12 noon Eastern Time tomorrow. Continuing with meteorology subjects, here's what's going on in the cloud layer. And you can see that stagnating system there as a result of the mixing of those two jet stream components. Great view of that on the water vapor map. Again, there are clouds. There's water vapor. Once again, clouds. And once again, water vapor. Dry mass of air stretching all the way from Baja California to the North Atlantic. And that's part of what's causing the compression as this cold air is coming down. It's running into this wall of dry massive air. Dry air is more massive than moist air due to the molar mass of atmospheric nitrogen versus atmospheric water. H2O is not as massive as N2. Here's the U.S. Doppler Radar map. And look at that horrendous ice storm there over southeast Texas once again, as well as heavy snow in northeast Texas, the entire state of Arkansas blanketed in snow, most of Oklahoma. Some funky weather, folks. Is your planet so hot that it's cold? Are you about to purchase a new thermometer which is in the form of a circle to match the circular logic of the ideas about climate change and carbon dioxide and global warming, global cooling, and how the Earth's atmosphere doesn't hold the Earth's heat latency the oceans do. Yeah, about 0.1% of the Earth's heat latency is in the atmosphere. The rest of it is in the oceans. Here's the power outage map, and the situation has improved from yesterday in Texas. Now you're only about, well, we were nearly at 4 million customers out of power in Texas yesterday. Now we're at more like 3 million. So from 4 to 3 million, that's an improvement. Oregon improved a little bit also. They reduced their power outages by about 100,000 since yesterday. Major power outages also in Louisiana, Mississippi, Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, and Virginia. Millions and millions of folks out of power. Do you have a generator? Do you have enough power to run things like your refrigerator, your heating systems, your aquarium? In any case, it's about time to do bonus features. Thanks for tuning in, Smash Team. Thanks for promoting us instead of fraud. Don't forget to check out our playlists if you haven't. We got a brand new one. It's called Do One Thing. We'll let you find that on your own at youtube.com/smashamash/playlists. If you enjoy the content on YouTube, press like and subscribe. Thanks to our BitChute subscribers as well. Please don't forget to subscribe over on YouTube, as there is exclusive content on all of our social media platforms. Here come a bonus of features, which will be in the form of a high-res image of the sun in intensitygram to show you a heapin' helping of 0 sunspots. This active region up here not showing any umbre yet, not even showing any magnetic organization. It could be a big one, as we don't even see any changes in the magnetogram up there yet. So we'll keep you posted on that. Again, no sunspots. And here are a few more SDO videos. I've saved my 2 favorite wavelengths for last. And here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news, we endeavor to provide you with stimulating content. And you can see that active region right up here where my pointer is. And the fact that we don't see any magnetism associated with it yet indicates that it may be bigger than it appears. So we'll be keeping you apprised of that. 171 angstroms. Next is 304 angstroms. Probably my second favorite. And I paused it here because you can see this little, it looks like a coronal mass ejection, folks, but it really isn't. That plasma must have splashed back down onto the chromosphere or remained in the corona. As I checked, that did not eject. I checked, it didn't eject. And that's part of the reason we have the channel, folks. The ability to forecast coronal mass ejections apparently is not something that is particularly common. But in any case, thanks for tuning in. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, welcome to the Neo Renaissance. May that solar wind be at your back.
Just a good old smash, never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw, been in trouble on social media since before its existence. Straightening facts, smacking down hacks. Someday our viewers might get me, but we tech LOL. Making my way, the only way I know how. That's just a little bit more than the tech will allow. Just a good old smash, wouldn't change if I could. fighting the nonsense. It's a neo-renaissance in the who.